So, I wanted to give my friends, my family, those who are going to soon become my friends and family, an opportunity to hear the story of my own shamanic initiation. And that's usually the question that I get asked the most is, what makes you a shaman and how did you become a shaman? And who did you go study with and what kinds of plant medicines did you take? And or do you really think you should be calling yourself a shaman? that that's a question I get a lot too. um, my feeling is we're really all on our way to becoming a shaman, that somehow becoming a shaman is a part of our process of moving from the innocent young children of God in a consciousness of materialism into becoming more what Rudolf Steiner called in the age of the consciousness soul, where we become aware that we are souls and that our bodies are expressions of that soul and that we're meant to be ensouled and not try to leave our bodies. So as long as we have one, no matter how many great trips you take outside, to try to arrive at some sort of relief from the sense of the trauma or anxiety that has maybe come with being in a body. Um, there's nothing that feels more I don't want to say beautiful, if beautiful can taste a feeling of beautiful, maybe home, maybe peace, um, then feeling fully ensouled and open to the source of our being. So here's the story of my own shamanic initiation, which I did not see coming. It was in 2005 in November time that I moved out of my home that I was sharing with my husband and my 5-year-old son and my 3-year-old daughter, and stepped into a path that was very scary of setting out on my own in this single mother journey, which is an initiation as well. And I got a home within a 10-minute radius of our family home, and began to share custody. And it was extremely, extremely challenging to separate when my babies were so little. And when I still wasn't yet really fully recovered and ready from childbirth and rearing the babies to really stand. So I had a lot of fear, and then of course I had a lot of grief for the loss of my husband, um, the connection with him as a man, as a friend, as my everything, and then also just the grief of the loss of the dream. So I was living in a beautiful home with him and my children in Sacramento, California, in a neighborhood that was very, very nice, with groomed sidewalks and lawns and nice houses that had beautiful architecture and that had expansive streets that offered like winding, nice pathways through trees to parks and places to take the stroller and the dog, this kind of thing. And, a nice coffee shop nearby that I could walk to, and near my friends, my family, where I had grown up. But there was something that was really missing, and I just knew deep in my heart that my soul was not a part of this picture, this story, and that although everything on the outside looked beautiful and seemed like success, there was something very distorted, because on the inside I felt this gnawing sensation, like something was missing. And there was, of course, challenges in my marriage, which I'm sure stemmed from my own missing something. And also within that context, I felt very afraid of who my husband had become. So I took a step, really empowered by love, the feeling of not needing to try to fight to change someone, but to love him more by allowing him to go in the direction that he felt called to go in, and to trust that I would find my way. And that part was challenging. That part was all normal. A lot of people experience these types of things. We had been married 10 years at this point, and I could just say mostly we were just really young when we met and got married, and we weren't all of who we were going to be. And as we grew into more of our own individuality, moving from our 20s, it became apparent that happiness meant loving one another enough to set each other free. So in that, there was still a lot of responsibility and uncertainty. So I moved from being very much supported financially and feeling that sense of protection, even when things were rocky, having that masculine, to being very much in a place of a lot of memory, really, of what it felt like to grow up myself with a mom and father that had been split up, and what that had done, and what my mother had experienced as a single mother financially, and being very much afraid of moving into that experience for myself personally. And it was very humbling, but I didn't move into a challenging financial situation initially. Actually, I was able to move very gracefully into a very beautiful home that sat on the top of a gentle hill, and had these huge windows that looked out on the skyline, where I could actually see well, I was thinking like that the planes coming and going from the airport a lot, but also in the distance as little lights, but also the sun setting every night. And so in the first few months of my separation, from about November to February, I began to take up this practice of seeking consciously to move through the feelings of grief and fear that I was having. So I did this by starting about 5 o'clock at night, maybe a little earlier, with a cup of tea and just sitting and watching the sun go down. And of course, this wasn't done every night, but half the time I had the children, and half the time I was wishing I did. And so it was usually on these nights that I did this practice where I would cry and scream and talk to myself and to God and to life and feel all of the feelings that were arising for me at this time. Mostly, I just cried, and I would feel mostly numb and like I didn't know how to feel because of how the relationship that I was in had brought me to feeling so much fear and frozenness inside. And so I took up this prayer while I was crying, while I was praying, that something holy from the sun's light, something kind of went like, something holy from the sun's own light would to take up residence inside of myself so that I would feel warm and holy inside. Something like this. And, I really just stared at the sun and I would watch it move through the little openings in the oak trees that I could see through. I had these 10 huge oak trees in my backyard, and the sun would kind of be filtered so that I could, stare straight at it through this filter. And I just didn't know what to do. So this is what I decided to do. And I would pray over and over and over again every day. Bring myself to this place of asking for help. It's true that a number of months before this moment, I had another fairly significant sort of, I want to say, like out of the blue experience, but like a ripening moment in my own journey. My ex-husband and I had been going to a counselor, and during the counselor's guidance for me experience, I felt resistance to what she was saying. And I remember she said to me, if you just let go of what you want to do and follow my will in this, Holly, then you'll be able to get through this. She was just trying to suggest to me that maybe I try something new and maybe I was being stubborn or something, but she said it in a really interesting way where she said, you just need to give your will over to mine. And so in this before moment, I'm actually outside and I'm taking the trash out. And I'm lifting up the trash can. And as I lift it up with my left hand, I look over my right shoulder and there's the sun coming through the trees on the side of the house. It was about sunset time. And I remember, throwing the garbage away and then saying to myself as I took off my wedding ring that if I was going to give my will over to anyone, it wouldn't be you. I was talking to this counselor in my mind. It's going to be the will of God, the will of spirit, the will of my higher self, because I don't know what else to do. So I made this motion when I took off my ring to put on another one, an invisible one. And to create a different kind of commitment. And then, of course, I realized and recognized when that was happening, even then, that that was actually the commitment that I had already made before I came here, before I married myself to a man that was causing me to feel like I needed to move out of connection with my own soul in order to be in connection with him. And so that's what was really missing. And I didn't really know the power of that moment of just unbidden committing to marrying the sun, the warmth that lives in the light, the wisdom that lives in the light. So that was something that was like a foreshadowing to this moment in my room now in February, where I've been practicing this connecting with the sun and praying that giving my will over to that which shines in its light would be giving me guidance. And so I just felt at this February moment, to remember the date specifically, but I just remember feeling tired of crying. Like I had cried all out and I didn't feel any more fear, and I didn't feel any more grief. That somehow I'd been able to bring all of these feelings, these challenging feelings, and I had felt them through. So I laid down on my bed and I decided to take a nap. I remember it was about 4 o'clock because it was like the beginning of usually when I would sit, and the sun was still up high, it was still light outside. So this is what happened. I laid down, I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden my eyes are open consciously in another realm. And I am outside and it's night, and there's a grove of trees all around, tall, green redwood trees. And I am sitting on the ground in the dirt, and in front of me there are stones that are in a circle, and in the center of the circle there is a fire. And it's a gentle fire. I can feel the flames and I can feel the warmth, and it's comforting. And across from the fire and across from the ring, not that far away but not that close, is a Native American man. And he has long black hair that's slicked down straight behind his shoulders, falling where I can't see. And he has high cheekbones and a very chiseled face that looks eternally strong and young and brave. And in his eyes, there's this depth of knowing that looks right through me and sees all of me. And a beautiful smile that's very approachable. And he doesn't have a shirt on, but he has a necklace that has the claw of a bear. And so I see him, and all of this happens, in an instant. So I'm just slowing it all down to share. And he says to me, "Now, Holly, stop playing the fool." And his voice to me sounds a lot like Sean Connery, something like really deep and of great authority, and with a little bit of humor in its tone that's kind of like driving something. And so, with that feeling of his voice and the tone that's driving this feeling, "Now, Holly, stop playing the fool," there's this ribbon of smoke that comes out of the fire. And within the smoke, that's like a snaking ribbon, I begin to become hypnotized and see pictures of my young childhood, moments before I can remember. And I find myself in them. So now I'm aware that I am watching the ribbon of smoke, and I become a part of the movies of the different frames and moments in my life. And I move from one to the next, like I'm having a life review, like I've died. And in each moment of my life, which extends out for some time in my awareness, I can feel myself having feelings internally, and I can feel what those feelings are: happy, sad, frustrated, mad. And I can also see the reels, the picture in each frame, each moment from the outside, as if I'm watching it. So I'm in it and I'm also watching it at the same time. And I can I can perceive that my internal feelings are not matching my external emotion, externalizing them, emotion. How do you call that? Emotionalizing. um, what I see is actually that I'm pretending in every experience in my life, from maybe three. There's a rare experience beyond three where there's congruence. But for the most part, what I see is that I change and I shapeshift my external acting to fit in with the dominant feeling or vibration happening, emotional energy around me. And an example of this is one of my favorite is I'm 5 and I'm having a birthday party. And it's my birthday and I'm at a ice cream parlor and I'm very excited at first and happy. But then a boy comes that lives next door across the street that I don't like. And I am really mad that he's there. Inside, I'm mad. I like tighten up and I don't like him. I don't like that he's there. But on the outside, I'm smiling and I'm like not looking at him. I'm looking at other friends. I'm laughing and I'm eating my clown ice cream soda. But I'm not pausing from that to really show or tell anybody how I'm feeling in that moment, right? So there's a mismatch, there's a pretending, there's a acting as if everything is okay, but also the same as everyone else. So, in the scheme of things, everything was okay, but there was a dishonesty. So, fast forward to another experience that always stands out for me, which was my grandmother's funeral. I was partly raised by my grandparents, and when my grandmother died, it was very, very challenging for me to experience the loss of her life. But in the moment of the actual funeral, I had been holding my son. He was about 3 at the time, and just a few minutes before, he sat up and he had started playing patty cake with someone behind us that we couldn't see. And as he was doing that, I felt this overwhelming sensation of peace and my grandmother's presence. And through the funeral, I continued to feel not sad, but actually happy at her freedom, at her peace. And you wouldn't have known this if you were sitting next to me, because everybody was so sad looking and sometimes crying that I was going along with this activity, like having a long face and a sad face instead of feeling a smile on my face, that would match how I was really feeling. So these are just two simple examples, but it happened all the time. And so what I really saw was that there was this feeling of this need to pretend what my emotions were to match the dominant emotions that were of the collective or the group around me, especially in school, especially in romantic relationships, especially with family. So that there was a feeling of pretending who I really was or how I really felt about things my whole life. And as I perceived this and sort of became really clear about this, I was also made to feel another awareness, which was there was another awareness present that was also me. It wasn't the me that was across the fire from this chief. That's what I call him now, the chief. And it wasn't the consciousness of myself in each of the movie frames or the one that was watching it, or it was something else completely separate. It was a field of consciousness that was actually holding the entire experience, that was set back with patience and a feeling of bliss and joy. And I tapped into this. I perceived it because it was also very present as a constant in all of the different reels of my life. So, in all of the different experiences of my life, I was going up and down in emotions, but there was also this presence in all of them that I could feel that I had never really connected with before or hadn't for a long time. And that's when I was able to meet myself. My presence, the presence of who I really am behind the emotion of the moment and the reactionary or pretending personality that went around that. And it was like I was able to take a breath for the first time and feel this sense of rightness. And in that moment, in that split second that I comprehended and felt this, I was drawn, whoop, like a sucking feeling, like drawn, whoop, back into the consciousness of myself more fully across the fire from the spirit that had brought me into this. And then he smiled and he handed me something. And it was a long, thin stick that had a forked tongue on the end that looked like a snake's tongue. So it looked like a snake. It looked like a stick, but it felt like it was a pipe. So I took it from him and it became a pipe in my hands. And when I had it in my hands, it felt just very natural to bring it to my lips and inhale. So, mind you, at this point in my life, I had not really studied or gone out of my way to understand Native American traditions in any way. And although I will share later some experiences I had already with this Native American spirit that I call the chief, I had not even encountered the word shaman before or known what that is. And I hadn't any experiences with like ceremonial work in any way of this nature. So, but anyway, that's what it felt like I should do. So I brought it to my lips and I inhaled. And when I did that, I immediately felt a pain that I can never forget. It was like I was being clawed by an eagle or a bear or wolf or mountain lion or like all of them at once from the inside of my chest out. Like there was something inside of my chest that was clawing its way out. And at the same time, I felt this burning sensation that was like such a hot fire. And at the same time as this, I felt like there was a sledgehammer inside. So it was like all of these sensations all at once and very painful. And so there was this ripping, burning, slamming sensation from the inside out. And I was in the experience, in this dream, this lucid experience of feeling all of this pain and not knowing what to do, like and at the same time in the waking world, which is what I call the world where we interact with each other when our physical eyes are open. In the waking world, the doorbell rang. And so at that moment, I'm in the dream and I'm like, the doorbell wakes up my body and I sit up, bolt upright, and I'm like, and now it's like really coming out of the dream and into the waking world in my consciousness, and I'm still feeling it. And then all of a sudden, I'm awake and I'm like quiet, silent, and like, that feeling of what just happened. So I get up to go and look and see if there's anyone at the door. There's no one there. And I'm in a daze is the best way to describe it. I walk around the house because I feel like I'm hearing music, and I can't figure out where the music is coming from. So I look out the window, I open the door, I try to find out where's the music coming from. I notice that the music changes slightly depending upon where I'm looking. And for some reason, I'm drawn to go into the bathroom and turn off the light and just in a bathroom that didn't have a window in it and just be in the darkness. And it's when I do that that I realize that the music is not coming from anywhere outside, it's coming from inside. That I'm hearing music that's coming from the inside of me. And then I realize it's actually not music. It's actually feeling that in my body and specifically in my heart, I am being touched. And that touch is feeling, and that feeling is rising up as music in my body, in my inner hearing. And I realize too that I can breathe and that I feel warm inside and that something magical has just happened and that I feel alive, so alive and so pure and so clear. And then I realize what has happened is that my heart has been opened. And all of the tension and the trauma has been removed. And that with that clarity, since there's nothing else here, just my heart that is open, that feels clear, I am able to feel all of life rushing in. And life rushing in is feeling like music. So this is how it happened. It was a gift. I didn't tell anybody for a very long time after this experience. I spent a lot of time with my 2 young children, singing with them, playing music with them, being in nature with them, noticing that the feeling and the sound, the music of my children and other children was very different from the music and the sound and the feeling of other adults in my life. And it took me into a really big question about the nature of the universe and the nature of myself and the nature of what it means to be human and all of these questions that we all have, but from a different perspective than I'd ever experienced before in my life because I could see more of reality. I spent the next 2 years learning how to meet with the chief in meditation and learning from him directly how to walk in the spirit realms with clarity. And I still work with him every moment of every day. I'm guided. And I am a student still of learning how to live with my heart open. So this is what began my journey. And I have to say, if I look back at before this moment in time, this happened when I was 33, I had many breadcrumbs along the way, showing me that something of a spiritual nature was coming into my life more fully and wanted my attention more fully. But I had been trying to live normally. So I'll speak to that a lot in this training because we can get in trouble that way. So some of you that are friends and family have heard this story before. You've been a client of mine. But it's always beneficial for me to share again because truly every time I do, I'm right back in it and feeling the awe of those moments, that moment, and feeling the deep appreciation and humility and just, the awe that I have for the gift that I've been given and the gift that I believe that we are all meant to have as we become conscious and aware that we are spiritual beings that are expressing ourselves through form for the purpose of celebration, for the purpose of embracing one another, for the purpose of the joyful feeling that comes from creating. So I hope this program will become something that is a source of inspiration for you. And that you find your moment, if you haven't already, of the quickening initiation too, however it unfolds. And if you've already had something of your own spiritual awakening, I'm so glad that you found me so that we can walk this journey together now too. And truly, it's my hope that we find personal empowerment, but also planetary healing through our individual work and our collective field that begins to grow and create a critical mass of joyful awareness by finding that one within us that is beyond all of the pain and suffering and thoughts and emotions that rise up and down and fall, go across the sky like clouds, so that we can find that still, strong space inside where we can always reside. And something warm and holy can take up residence in our inside. So thank you so much for joining me and for listening to my story. And I can't wait to share more and to see what wants to emerge from our time together.